If you are lonely when you're alone, you are in bad company. Let me tell you a story. James was the kind of man most people envied. He had everything, or so it seemed. A large circle of friends who always laughed at his jokes, a beautiful wife who stood by his side at every social event, and a life that looked perfect on the surface. But then life threw him a curveball. James fell ill, and suddenly everything changed. When he needed his friends the most, they vanished. The ones who called him every weekend stopped picking up the phone. The ones who promised to always be there were suddenly too busy. And his wife. She walked away, unwilling to bear the weight of his struggle. James found himself sitting alone, surrounded by silence, wondering how his life had unraveled so quickly. The very people who once made him feel important were gone, and he was left with a harsh truth. They were there because they needed him, not because they valued him. And this isn't just James's story, is it? It's the story of so many. People come into your life not always because they care, but because they get something from you, your time, your energy, your support. And the moment they can no longer take, they leave. It's a cycle that leaves you questioning your worth, wondering if being alone means you've failed. It's an uncomfortable thought, isn't it? The idea of being alone. No friends to text, no one to call. Just you and your thoughts echoing back at you in the quiet. For many, it feels like a prison sentence, a punishment, a harsh reminder of rejection or inadequacy. In a world obsessed with connection, being alone feels like failing. Imagine waking up one day and realizing there's no one to call, no one to share your thoughts with. It's a heavy feeling, isn't it? The kind of fear that creeps in when the noise dies down, and all you're left with is silence. But what if this silence wasn't a curse? What if being alone was your greatest advantage? So, are you ready to find out how to turn solitude into your superpower? If you are, press that like button under this video, and let's dive into this journey together. Maybe you see a bit of yourself in James' story. Maybe you've been there too, investing so much in others, only to feel the sting of being overlooked, underappreciated, or even replaced. It's a story many of us live, isn't it? We give, we care, we pour ourselves into others, hoping that connection will fill the gaps in our own hearts. But when those connections fade, we're left with the question, what now? Society doesn't help, does it? It screams at us, you need people to feel whole. You're not complete until someone loves you. You're only as good as the size of your circle. And so, we chase it. We chase approval, love, validation, terrified of the silence that comes when the applause stops and the crowd thins out. But what if society has it wrong? What if solitude isn't emptiness but an invitation? What if being alone is the opportunity you've been avoiding to discover who you truly are? The Stoics knew this long before we did. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor burdened with unimaginable responsibility, often retreated into himself to find strength. He wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts, not the number of friends you have, not the opinions of those who left. Your thoughts, your strength, your self-worth, these are what truly define you." And it's not just ancient wisdom. Look at the greats throughout history. Albert Einstein spent hours alone, and in that solitude, he dreamed up ideas that changed the world. Oprah Winfrey often talks about how her moments of reflection, away from the noise, helped her become the powerhouse she is today. Even J.K. Rowling, in her most difficult times, used solitude not as a place to despair, but as a wellspring of creativity and purpose. But let's not pretend it's easy. Solitude is hard. It forces you to confront the parts of yourself you'd rather ignore, the doubts, the insecurities, the fears you've buried deep. It strips away the comfort of distraction and leaves you bare. But that's where the magic happens. Because in that silence, you'll find resilience, you'll find clarity, you'll find yourself. The silence you fear isn't your enemy, it's your teacher. It's showing you that you don't need anyone else to tell you you're enough. You already are. So, let me ask you, are you ready to stop running? Are you ready to sit with yourself, not as a punishment, but as an act of power? Because on the other side of that silence isn't loneliness. It's freedom, it's strength, it's you. So stop fearing the quiet, embrace it, because on the other side of loneliness isn't emptiness, it's strength. Write this in the comments. I embrace my solitude. And let this be the beginning of discovering the unshakable power within you. Number 1. You don't need someone to build an empire. Empires aren't built with borrowed bricks. Stop thinking someone else is your foundation. Let's face it, people will let you down. They will. They'll walk into your life, make promises, and when the winds change, they'll leave, taking pieces of you with them. And when we know that everyone is here to reject you, to betray you, to turn their back when you need them most, why do you still convince yourself that you need someone to build your empire? Why are you waiting for someone to hand you strength when all they have for you is doubt, betrayal, and rejection? Think about it. The ones you trusted, the ones you thought would stand by you, they're the same ones who showed you how fragile connections can be. Maybe it was a friend. Maybe it was the person you loved most, the one you thought would never hurt you. They did, didn't they? And now, here you are, left with this heavy truth. No one is going to build your life for you. But here's the thing they don't tell you. This is the moment where your real power begins. Look at J.K. Rowling. Rejected, broke, at her lowest, she didn't wait for someone to rescue her. She didn't look for borrowed bricks to build her life. She sat alone, surrounded by her struggles, and wrote her way to an empire. She created a world out of nothing because she decided she didn't need anyone else to hand her the tools to succeed. Or take Beyoncé. When her trust was shattered, when betrayal knocked on her door, she didn't let it define her. She didn't crumble. Instead, she turned that pain into art, into lemonade, and showed the world what it means to rise. She didn't need someone else to fix her. She became her own foundation. And you have that same power within you. But first, you have to stop searching for strength outside of yourself. The Stoics had it right. True power lies in what you control. Epictetus said, "The greater the difficulty, the more glory in surmounting it." The betrayal, the rejection, the silence, they're not here to destroy you. They're here to shape you, to teach you that your empire isn't built on others. It's built on you. Picture this, a lighthouse standing alone on the edge of a stormy sea. It doesn't need anyone to hold it up. The waves crash, the wind howls, but the lighthouse stands firm, casting its light, unshaken. That's you. You don't need someone to hold you together. You don't need someone to build your strength. You are the lighthouse. You are the light. I won't lie to you, this path isn't easy. It will take everything you have to rise from the pain, to lay each brick of your empire with your own hands. But isn't that the point? The things worth having are never handed to you. They're earned. And every time you choose to stand, to build, to move forward, you're proving that you don't need anyone else to make you whole. So here's my challenge to you. Stop waiting. Stop looking back. Take the pain they gave you and turn it into bricks. Lay them one by one and don't stop until you've built something so strong, so unshakable, that no one, not the ones who left, not the ones who doubted you, can ever take it away. Write this in the comments below. I am my foundation. Say it, believe it, and then start building. Number 2. Loneliness isn't a curse, it's a compass. The silence you're avoiding, it's pointing you to where you need to go. Let's talk about loneliness. It's heavy, isn't it? That crushing weight of sitting in a quiet room, staring at nothing, feeling like the world has moved on without you. It creeps in at night, wrapping around you like a cold fog, whispering that you're lost, forgotten, unworthy. And you, sitting there, clutching at memories, longing for someone, anyone, to fill that void, are convinced that being alone is the worst fate imaginable. But what if I told you that loneliness isn't your enemy? What if I told you it's not a curse, but a compass? The silence you dread, the solitude you fear. It's not there to torment you, it's there to guide you. I know what you're thinking. How can this emptiness be a good thing? How can feeling so disconnected help me find anything? That's the lie society has sold you. If you're alone, you're broken. If you're lonely, you're doing something wrong. And so you scramble to escape it, to drown it out with distractions, to chase people who barely care, just so you can avoid sitting in that quiet room with your thoughts. But let me tell you a story. Have you ever heard of Nikola Tesla? He was a genius, the mind behind so much of the technology we use today. But Tesla wasn't surrounded by people cheering him on. No. He lived much of his life in solitude. And in that solitude, he didn't find despair. He found clarity. He called it the mind's greatest gift. In the silence, away from the noise of the world, he could focus, dream, and create. Or think about Malala Yousafzai. After facing unimaginable violence and nearly losing her life, she found herself alone during her recovery. The world might have expected her to crumble, to fall apart in that solitude, but instead, she reflected. She listened to the silence and found her purpose, her compass pointing her toward a mission that would change millions of lives. You see, loneliness forces you to confront truths you've been running from. It strips away the masks, the distractions, the noise. It's just you and your thoughts, raw and unfiltered. And that's terrifying, isn't it? Because in that silence, you can't lie to yourself anymore. You can't pretend. You have to face who you are, what you want, and what's holding you back. That's why loneliness feels so painful. Not because it's wrong, but because it's real. It's a mirror showing you exactly where you are and where you need to go. And here's the thing about mirrors. They don't lie. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, often retreated into solitude to reflect. He didn't see loneliness as a weakness, but as a tool. He wrote, "Look well into yourself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if you will always look. That strength, that clarity, it doesn't come from the crowd. It comes from the quiet. Imagine this, a compass. It doesn't work if you're constantly shaking it, spinning it, drowning it in noise. It only works when you hold it still, when you stop, when you listen. Loneliness is your compass. It's pointing you toward your purpose, your truth, your next step. But you'll never see it if you're too busy running from the quiet. Think about all the greats who found power in solitude. Steve Jobs often took long, silent walks to clear his mind and spark innovation. Frida Kahlo, despite her personal pain and isolation, turned her solitude into art that continues to inspire generations. These aren't stories of people who avoided loneliness. They're stories of people who embraced it, who let it guide them to something greater. But let me be clear, loneliness isn't easy. It's not supposed to be. It's a test, a crucible. It asks you to sit in the discomfort, to face your fears, to listen to the whispers of your own soul. It's not comfortable, but it's necessary, because in that silence, you'll find answers. You'll find clarity. You'll find you. The person you've been searching for, the person you've been trying to become. That person isn't out there. They're in here, waiting for you to stop running, stop chasing, and just listen. So, stop seeing loneliness as a punishment. It's not. It's a compass. It's the guide you've been ignoring, pointing you toward the life you're meant to build. But only if you're brave enough to sit with it, to face it, to let it do its work. Here's your challenge. The next time the silence feels unbearable, don't reach for your phone. Don't distract yourself. Sit with it. Listen. Ask yourself, what is this trying to teach me? Where is it guiding me? And then follow it. Write this in the comments below. Loneliness is my compass. Say it, believe it, and let it point you toward your strength, your truth, and your purpose. Because on the other side of loneliness isn't emptiness. It's everything you've been looking for. Number 3. Stop borrowing happiness. Learn to manufacture your own. Happiness isn't a loan you take from others. It's something you build, brick by brick, inside yourself. Let's have a moment of truth. Why does your happiness depend on someone else? Why is it tied to their attention, their approval, their presence? Think about it. Every time you rely on someone to make you smile, to make you feel worthy, you're borrowing happiness. You're taking out a loan, and when they walk away or fail to meet your expectations, you're left in debt, drowning in disappointment. This is the trap so many of us fall into. You meet someone, or maybe it's your friends, your family, even the person you think you can't live without. And suddenly, your entire mood hinges on them. They compliment you, you're on top of the world. They ignore you, and it feels like the ground has been ripped out from under you. Does this sound familiar? Now ask yourself this. How is that fair? To you, to place the weight of your happiness on someone else's shoulders. People are unpredictable. They change, they leave, they have their own struggles. And when you make them the source of your joy, you hand them the power to control your emotions. That's not happiness. That's dependency. Let me tell you a story about Steve Jobs. Love him or hate him, he was a man who didn't wait for others to validate his vision. Early in his career, he faced rejection, criticism, and doubt. But he didn't crumble. He didn't borrow happiness from a crowd that wasn't ready to cheer for him. Instead, he focused on his goals, on what he wanted to build. And when he succeeded, the applause came. But by then, he didn't need it. He'd already created something greater, a sense of fulfillment that came from within. Or take Frida Kahlo. She endured physical pain, betrayal, and heartbreak. Yet, she didn't wait for the world to hand her happiness. She poured her struggles onto the canvas, creating art that not only healed her, but inspired millions. Her happiness wasn't borrowed. It was manufactured stroke by stroke from her own resilience. This is where Stoicism comes in. The Stoics believed that happiness isn't something you chase. It's something you create by mastering your inner world. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In other words, happiness isn't out there. It's in here. But let's not sugarcoat it. Building your own happiness isn't easy. It's hard work. It means looking at the parts of yourself you've been outsourcing to others and taking them back. It means learning to be okay on your own, to find joy in your own company, to stop seeking approval and start giving it to yourself. Picture a garden. If you rely on others to water it, to plant the seeds, to tend to the soil, what happens when they leave? The garden withers. But if you take control, if you learn to care for it yourself, it thrives, no matter who comes or goes. That's your happiness. It's your garden, and you're the gardener. Here's the reality. Happiness borrowed is happiness that can be taken away. But happiness you create, that's yours forever. Look at the greats. J.K. Rowling didn't wait for someone to tell her she was good enough to write. She wrote because it brought her joy, because it gave her a sense of purpose. Oprah Winfrey didn't wait for validation after rejection. She built her own platform, her own legacy, fueled by a happiness that came from within. And you have the same power. But first, you have to stop looking outward. Stop expecting others to give you what you can give yourself. Start small. What's one thing that brings you joy? Not something someone else gave you, but something you created for yourself? Maybe it's a hobby, a goal, even a quiet moment of peace. Hold on to that. That's the seed of your happiness. Here's your challenge. Write down 3 things you've been borrowing your happiness from. Maybe it's someone's attention, a toxic relationship, or the approval of people who don't even matter. Then write down how you can start creating that happiness for yourself. Happiness isn't a gift someone else gives you. It's not a loan. It's a skill, a practice, a choice. And the moment you stop borrowing it, the moment you start building it, is the moment you take your power back. Write this in the comments below. I create my own happiness. Say it, believe it, and then start doing it. Because when you stop borrowing and start building, you'll discover that the only happiness worth having is the one you make yourself. Number 4. Not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. You're not Netflix. Stop letting everyone have access to your best moments. Let me ask you something. How many people have you let into your life who didn't deserve to be there? How many people have you handed a front row ticket to your story, only for them to sit there and criticize, betray, or walk out halfway through? Be honest. You've done it, haven't you? You've let people take up space in your heart, your mind, your time. People who didn't value it. People who didn't earn it. And why? Because you thought that's what you were supposed to do. Be open, they say. Let everyone in. Society tells you that your worth is measured by the number of people in your life. The more friends, the more followers, the more attention you have, the better, right? Wrong. Here's the truth. Not everyone deserves a front row seat in your life. Some people shouldn't even make it past the lobby. Think about it. If your life is a movie, the people you let in are your audience. They get to see your struggles, your victories, your vulnerable moments. So why are you handing out VIP passes to people who bring nothing but negativity, drama, and doubt? Why are you letting people who don't clap for you when you win sit in the best seats? Take Steve Harvey, for example. He's spoken openly about cutting off toxic relationships, even when it was painful. He realized that not everyone in his circle was there to support him. Some people were only there for the show, for what they could take from him. So he made a choice. He stopped giving them access. He prioritized his peace over their opinions, and guess what? His life flourished. Or look at Princess Diana. In the midst of betrayal and public scrutiny, she learned to guard her energy, to focus on the people and causes that truly mattered. She didn't let everyone have a say in her life. She reclaimed her narrative, choosing depth and authenticity over superficial connections. This is where dark psychology comes into play. People will take as much as you let them. Some will pretend to care, only to use your vulnerabilities against you. Others will stick around, not because they value you, but because they enjoy the access. And here's the harsh truth. It's not their fault. It's yours. You gave them the seat. But here's the good news. You can take it back. You don't owe anyone a spot in your life. Your energy, your time, your attention, these are precious resources, and not everyone deserves a share. The Stoics had a word for this: ataraxia, a state of serene calm, free from disturbance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Surround yourself with people who bring light, and your soul will shine. Surround yourself with toxicity, and you'll dim. Now, imagine this. Your life is a VIP event. The velvet ropes are up. The stage is set. Who do you let in? Do you open the doors to everyone, even those who bring chaos and criticism? Or do you choose wisely, letting in only the ones who respect the privilege of being part of your journey? You have the power to audit your circle. Take a good, hard look at who's sitting in those front row seats. Are they cheering you on? Or are they silently hoping you'll fail? Are they adding value to your life? Or are they draining it? And yes, this might mean making some tough decisions. It might mean distancing yourself from people you once trusted, once loved. It might mean walking away from relationships that no longer serve you. But remember this: protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's necessary. Look at Oprah Winfrey. She once said, "You are not responsible for the energy others bring into your life. You are responsible for the energy you allow into your life." That's the key. You can't control what people do, but you can control who you let in. So here's your challenge. Audit your circle. Write down the names of the people in your life. Next to each name, ask yourself, do they add value or drain it? Do they lift me up or weigh me down? And if someone doesn't deserve their front row seat, have the courage to move them to the back or out of the theater altogether. Write this in the comments below. I protect my front row. Say it, believe it, and then live it. Because your life is too valuable to waste on people who don't deserve a seat at your table. Reserve those seats for the ones who clap the loudest, support the strongest, and love the deepest. The rest, let them watch from afar. Number 5. The crowd will cheer today and forget tomorrow, so why care? The applause is always temporary. Live for the things that echo after the crowd leaves. Let's talk about the crowd, the people who cheer for you one day and forget you the next. It feels good, doesn't it? When they're clapping, when they're watching, when they're validating every move you make. But here's the thing, the crowd is fickle. They're loud when you're winning, silent when you're struggling, and gone when you need them most. So why do you care so much about their approval? Why are you letting people who barely know you, who won't remember you tomorrow, dictate how you live your life today? Think about it. A fireworks show lights up the sky, dazzling everyone watching. The crowd oohs and ahs, thrilled by the spectacle. But as soon as it's over, they pack up and leave. The show is forgotten, just another fleeting moment in their busy lives. That's what living for the applause is like, a temporary burst of light in someone else's story. Now let me tell you about someone who didn't care about the crowd. Keanu Reeves is a Hollywood star, but you don't see him chasing the limelight. He's not on social media flaunting his life or begging for attention. He lives quietly, focuses on his craft, and helps others without seeking recognition. Why? Because he knows that the crowd's opinions don't define him. Or think about Eleanor Roosevelt. She faced constant criticism as the First Lady, often ridiculed for her activism and boldness, but she didn't let the noise stop her. She once said, "Do what you feel in your heart to be right, for you'll be criticized anyway." She understood that the crowd's cheers and jeers were fleeting, but the impact she made by staying true to herself would last forever. The Stoics had a term for this: contemptus mundi, disdain for the world's fleeting opinions. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "What we do now echoes in eternity." It wasn't the applause of his time that mattered, but the legacy of his actions. So here's the question: are you living for the momentary cheers of the crowd, or are you building something that will last long after the applause fades? Let's be real, the crowd will never be satisfied. You could give them everything, and it still wouldn't be enough. One wrong move, one missed step, and they'll turn on you without hesitation. Living for their approval is a losing game, one that leaves you empty and chasing validation that will never truly fulfill you. Instead, live for the things that matter to you, the things that align with your values, your goals, your purpose. Build a life that echoes after the crowd is gone, a life that's yours, not theirs. Write this in the comments below. I live for what lasts. Say it, believe it, and stop caring about the crowd. Because when the cheers fade, the only thing that will matter is how true you were to yourself. Number 6. The freedom to walk alone, where true power lives. The ones who walk alone walk farther. The ones who stand alone stand stronger. Let me ask you something. Why are you so afraid to walk alone? Is it the silence, the fear of being judged? Or is it the nagging thought that if no one's by your side, you must be doing something wrong? Society has drilled this into us, hasn't it? Strength is in numbers, they say. Don't be alone. Don't stand out. Stay with the group. But here's the truth. True power isn't found in the crowd. It's found when you have the courage to walk your path alone. Picture a lion. It doesn't roam in packs or rely on the approval of others. It walks alone, commanding respect simply by being itself. A lion doesn't ask, "Is this okay?" or "Will they approve of me?" It moves with purpose, focused, powerful, free. That's the kind of strength that comes from choosing your own path, no matter how lonely it may seem. But let's not pretend walking alone is easy. It's not. When you choose to step away from the crowd, you lose the safety of their noise, their validation, their distractions. You're left with just yourself, your thoughts, your doubts, your fears. And that's terrifying, isn't it? Because now there's no one to blame, no one to lean on, no one to hide behind. But here's the secret. That's where the magic happens. Think about Rosa Parks. She didn't wait for a crowd to stand with her. She took her stand alone, refusing to give up her seat, knowing the consequences could be severe. That solitary act of courage sparked a movement that changed history. Or consider Muhammad Ali. He walked alone when he refused to conform, choosing his principles over popularity. He didn't fear the isolation because he knew that true freedom came from staying true to himself. Walking alone forces you to confront who you really are. It strips away the masks, the pretense, the noise of others' opinions. It's just you and your truth. And that's where true power lives, in knowing who you are and refusing to compromise, even when the world pushes against you. The Stoics believed that solitude wasn't a weakness, but a strength. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is in yourself that you will find the strength you need." When you walk alone, you're not abandoning others. You're finding yourself. Imagine this: a mountain standing alone on the horizon. The wind howls, storms rage, but the mountain doesn't move. It stands tall, rooted, unshakable. That's the kind of strength you build when you stop fearing solitude and start embracing it. But walking alone doesn't mean you're disconnected from others. It means you're selective. You don't let just anyone walk beside you. You choose people who align with your values, your vision, your purpose. And if no one fits that right now, you're okay with that, because you've learned to be enough for yourself. So here's your challenge. Take one bold step toward walking your own path. It doesn't have to be big. Maybe it's saying no to something that doesn't serve you. Maybe it's pursuing a goal that others doubt. Maybe it's simply sitting in the quiet and asking yourself, what do I want? Whatever it is, take that step. And don't be afraid to take it alone. Write this in the comments below. I am strong enough to walk alone. Say it, believe it, and then live it. Because the freedom to walk alone isn't just where true power lives. It's where you'll find the most authentic, unstoppable version of yourself. Number 7. Rejection isn't the end. It's the start of something bigger. Rejection isn't your end game, it's your starting point. The best stories begin with a no. Rejection. It stings, doesn't it? That sharp, unrelenting ache of being told you're not enough, you're not wanted, or you're not what we're looking for. It's a blow to the ego, a punch to the gut, and for a moment, it feels like your world has come crashing down. But let me tell you something. Rejection isn't the end. It's not your defeat. It's the spark that can ignite something far greater than you ever imagined. Think about Walt Disney. He was fired from a newspaper job because his editor thought he lacked creativity. Imagine that. Being told you're not creative enough to succeed. Most people would have packed it in, swallowed the defeat, and settled for less. But not Walt. That rejection wasn't his end, it was his beginning. He used it to fuel his dream, to push harder, and to prove everyone wrong. And the result? A legacy that has inspired millions. Or take Lady Gaga. Dropped by her first record label, she could have given up right there. But instead, she took that rejection and turned it into an empire of music, art, and influence. She didn't let a single no define her. She turned it into a challenge, a stepping stone to the global icon she is today. Rejection isn't failure, it's redirection. It's the universe's way of saying, this door isn't yours, but there's another, bigger, better, waiting for you if you're willing to keep going. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus, born a slave and faced with countless rejections, taught that external events don't control us. It's how we respond that matters. He said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Rejection is just an event. How you choose to respond is what shapes your story. Let's take it a step further. Why does rejection hurt so much? It's because we tie our self-worth to someone else's opinion. We let their no make us believe we're not good enough, smart enough, or worthy enough. But here's the truth. Their rejection isn't about you. It's about them, their preferences, their limitations, their inability to see your potential. Rejection is like a mirror. It forces you to look at yourself, to ask, what now? And that's where the magic happens. Because in that moment, you have a choice, to let the rejection define you or to let it refine you. Picture this, a sculptor working on a block of marble. Every time they chip away at it, it looks like they're destroying it. But they're not. They're revealing the masterpiece hidden inside. That's what rejection does. It chips away at the parts of you that don't serve your purpose. leaving behind a stronger, sharper, more determined version of yourself. The world's greatest successes often begin with rejection. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison, 27 years of being told no to equality, justice, and freedom. But he didn't let those rejections break him. He used them to build an unshakable resolve, emerging as a leader who changed the course of history. The same goes for you. Rejection isn't the universe telling you to stop. It's telling you to recalibrate, to find another way, to prove that you're stronger than the no you just heard. So here's your challenge. Think about the last time you were rejected. What did you do? Did you let it stop you, or did you use it as fuel? Now, take that rejection and turn it into your power. Let it be the reason you push harder, dream bigger, and refuse to give up. Write this in the comments below. Rejection fuels my rise. Say it, believe it. And the next time someone tells you no, smile. Because you know what they don't. Rejection isn't your end. It's just the beginning of something bigger. Number 8. The world will move on, so move with it. The clock won't stop ticking just because your heart is hurting. Time to get moving. The world doesn't wait, does it? It doesn't pause for your heartbreak, your betrayal, or the rejection you're still replaying in your mind. The people who hurt you, they've moved on. The ones who ignored you, they're busy living their lives. And here you are, stuck, hoping the world will somehow slow down and notice your pain. But here's the hard truth. The world will move on, with or without you. And you have a choice. You can sit in the same place, clinging to what's already gone, or you can stand up, dust yourself off, and move with it. I know what you're thinking. But it's not that simple. You're right, it's not. Pain has a way of freezing you, making time feel like it's standing still. But while you're stuck in that moment, the clock is ticking. The world isn't going to wait for you to heal, to find closure, to feel ready. It's moving forward. And the only way to catch up is to stop looking back. Think about Nelson Mandela. He spent 27 years in prison, years stolen from him, filled with pain and isolation. When he was finally released, he could have been consumed by anger and resentment. He could have stayed frozen in the past, reliving every injustice. But he didn't. Instead, he chose to move forward, to lead, to inspire, and to create change. He knew that dwelling on the past would only rob him of the future. The same is true for you. Whatever you've been through, heartbreak, rejection, betrayal, it doesn't have to define you. It doesn't have to be the weight that holds you down. Pain is a chapter, not the whole story. And the only way to write the next one is to keep turning the pages. Picture this: a river flowing endlessly toward the horizon. It doesn't stop for the rocks in its path. It doesn't wait for fallen branches to clear. It keeps moving, carving its way forward, no matter what tries to block it. That's how you need to see your life. You are the river, strong, relentless, unstoppable. Yes, it's hard. Moving on means letting go of the person who hurt you, of the dreams that didn't happen, of the closure you thought you needed. But here's the secret. You don't need to have it all figured out to move forward. You just need to take one step, then another, and another. The world isn't waiting, and that's not a bad thing. It means you have the freedom to grow, to change, to rebuild, on your own terms. Stop holding on to the past and start walking toward the future. Write this in the comments below. I move with the world. Say it, believe it, and then take that first step. The world is moving. It's time for you to catch up. Number 9. Your greatest strength is being you. No apologies, no masks. A diamond doesn't apologize for its sharp edges. It shines because of them. Let's get something straight. You are not here to be everything to everyone. You're not here to change yourself so people will stay. You're here to live as who you are, unapologetically, because that is your greatest strength. People will come into your life and people will leave. That's the nature of the world. But you are the constant, and that's your power. Think about it. How many times have you bent over backward, changed parts of yourself, just to keep someone around? You softened your voice, hid your opinions, smiled when you didn't want to, all because you thought, if I'm more like what they want, they'll stay. And maybe they did, for a while. But then they left anyway, and you were left wondering, what's wrong with me? Here's the truth. There's nothing wrong with you. The problem isn't who you are. It's that you're trying to be someone you're not. You're trying to fit into a mold for people who aren't meant to stay. Look at Taylor Swift. She's spent years in the spotlight, with people constantly dissecting her choices, her relationships, her art. And what does she do? She keeps showing up as herself. She reclaims her narrative, refuses to shrink to fit someone else's expectations, and keeps creating on her terms. Not everyone stays on her side, but the ones who matter do. Or take Chadwick Boseman. Even in his final years, as he battled silently with illness, he lived with integrity and purpose. He didn't apologize for the choices he made or the paths he walked. He stayed true to himself, and because of that, he left a legacy that will inspire generations. Here's the lesson. People will come into your life, and people will leave. It's inevitable. Some will love you for who you are, and others will walk away because they can't handle your light. But their coming and going doesn't define your worth. You do. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." People's opinions, their actions, their decisions to stay or leave, those are outside events. You can't control them. What you can control is how you see yourself, how you carry yourself, and how you choose to live. Imagine a tree in the middle of a field. Seasons change, leaves fall, and new ones grow. Birds come and go, resting on its branches, but never staying forever. Yet, the tree remains. It doesn't shrink when the birds leave. It doesn't bend to make them stay. It stands tall, rooted, unshakable. That's you. You are the tree. People will come into your life to teach you, to challenge you, to love you. And they will leave, not because you failed, but because their part in your story is over. Your strength isn't in making them stay. It's in standing firm, knowing that who you are is enough, whether they stay or go. Here's the challenge. Stop apologizing for being you. Stop dimming your light to keep people comfortable. Be bold, be authentic, be the diamond with sharp edges, because the ones who truly value you will stay. Not in spite of your edges, but because of them. Write this in the comments below. I am enough as I am. Say it, believe it, and live it. Because your greatest strength isn't in who stays or who leaves. It's in being unapologetically, powerfully, beautifully you. So folks, life is not about who stays or who leaves. It's about who you become. Rejection, betrayal, loneliness, they're not the end of your story. They're the turning points, the chapters where you rise stronger, wiser, and unshakable. Remember, your value isn't tied to anyone else. It's rooted in you. Build your empire, embrace solitude, and never apologize for being your authentic self. The world will move on, but so will you, on your terms. If this resonated with you, hit the like button, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and comment below. I am unstoppable. Your journey starts now.